Can you relate? Sometimes you look at photos of other photographers and you think they look so polished and so perfect and so professional, and you just don't know what their secret is. Well, I have found out what their secret is, and that is color grading. Okay, so now we do know what the secret to amazing photography is, but you may still be wondering, how do I know which colors to adjust and how exactly do I do it? Let me show you now in Photoshop. So I've opened Photoshop, and now depending on your settings, you might not see anything about colors. So first of all, what you want to do is go to Window up here and then select Color. So now you see at least some color information. But what I recommend you do is that you change this to the color wheel because it will make color grading really easy. So go up to this little menu here, the three stripes, and then select Color Wheel here. So now you see this color wheel, and so the trick is, if for example you find that your picture is a little bit too blue, you just look at what is the complementary color of blue, so the opposing color on the color wheel. In this case it's yellow, possibly orange, depending on the shade of blue you have. So if you want to make your picture less blue, you would simply add more yellow, maybe also add more orange or more red. If you find that your picture is too green overall, you could add simply more magenta. So you simply have to check on the color wheel what is opposite the color you want to affect. So let's use this in practice. I'm going to show you my first favorite tool for Photoshop color grading. Go down to this menu here, which is this circle shape. That creates basically a new adjustment layer. So let's choose the tool Color Balance. So now you get this second layer here, which is a color balance layer. And you see it has all these sliders. And what you can do with this tool is that you can adjust either just the shadows, just the midtones, or just the highlights of a picture. Now, the shadows are the darkest areas in your image, the midtones are the midtones, obviously, and the highlights are the brightest areas. I like to start with the shadows, it's just a habit. And so let's pretend we wanted to add more red in the shadows. So red is opposite of cyan. Cyan simply means light blue. So you can see it here actually. You just want to add more red, which means you're reducing the cyan. Then, as you can see here, green is also sort of at the other end. So you might want to also reduce the green to get more red. So you're going more into the magenta range. Maybe you want to also add a bit more yellow. Okay, so now let's go to the highlights. Let's say you wanted the highlights to be also more red and yellow, so more warm basically. You can do the same here, just amp up the red. Maybe add a bit more magenta or not, you can leave that alone as well. Add a bit more yellow. And now you can see that the whole image has become a bit more warm and more red because we've added more red and yellow tones. Let me show you before and after. There you go. So that's how I use the color balance tool. Okay, so I'm going to delete that. And now let me show you my second favorite color grading tool, which is in the same menu. They all are actually. So click on it and then go down to the bottom and choose Selective Color. This is such a great tool because you can adjust individual colors only. So for example, you can adjust only the reds, only the greens, only the blues, whatever you want. And then you see the same sliders or similar sliders as in the color balance tool. So let's pretend we wanted to adjust only the reds because there's a lot of red in this picture. Maybe you wanted to adjust the lipstick and the nail polish here. Let's pretend we wanted to make the reds now more cold, so more blue. Then simply increase the cyan, which is sort of light blue. You could add more green or less green with the magenta tool. I'm going to leave it on 0. And then I want to add less yellow now. So I want to reduce the yellow because I want the picture colder, right? So I want to add more blue. And so with the black, you can simply adjust the saturation of the color. So we are on the reds, right? So you could make the reds more saturated or less saturated. I'm going to leave that on 0. By the way, if you want to put these back to 0, just double click. That's handy. So now you can see with the before and after. Before it was more warm and red. Now we've taken it to a more blue range and made the colors cooler overall. Right, let's delete that. I'll show you the next tool I like. That's actually my favorite color grading tool in Photoshop, and it's so easy to use, and I think people don't use it enough. So let's go back to the menu and choose Color Lookup. Sounds complicated, but it's really not. So you see here in this very first drop-down menu where it says Load 3D LUT, that has lots of color templates in there, and they're sort of preloaded color grades. And you can simply play around with them. So for example, some of them tell you what they will do. This will make it look like candlelight. Let's just do that for now. And you see how that changes the whole image dramatically. And of course, you usually don't want it at 100% because it's too much. So you can play with the opacity here. Maybe drop it down to 20, something like that. So before and after. See how that makes it much warmer now. Let's play with a few others. I really like the Fuji ones, so they make it look like, Fujifilm. So let's try this one or this one, because they really give you a punchy look. They really amp up the contrast, I think. You can try the Kodak ones as well and see how this is the before again. You can get a very different look, with one click basically, and you can really play around with these. You could even combine a few different ones. That's what I often do. So just play around with that and see what works with your picture. A nice one is also Foggy Night, if you want to make it look more like nighttime. In this case, it doesn't work so well, but if you have something like a landscape or a picture outdoors, it really does work very well. Okay, I'll delete that, and I'll show you my next favorite color grading tool, which is Hue Saturation. So let's open the menu again and go to Hue Saturation. This tool is a little bit similar to Selective Color, but it has another bonus. First of all, you can use this super handy icon. So let's say you wanted to change the color of the apple here. And sometimes this is green, right? But it could also be that actually the underlying tone is yellow. So if you're trying to affect the greens and nothing happens, it might be that's because this is actually yellows. So if you use this thing, click on it and then click on whatever you want to change the color of. See? And I've taken a sample here of the apple color and it tells you that indeed it's yellows is the main undertone. So now if you want to change the color of the apple, you have to affect the yellows. So you could now change it to whatever color you want. You can make it more green. You can make it, I don't know, purple, blue, whatever you want. Let's make it red for now. And now if you wanted to make sure that you only change the color of the apple, obviously, you simply invert this mask here. You see this white rectangle here. Just click Control-I or Command-I on your keyboard. Okay, and now we've hidden that color change. And now you grab a soft brush, so go to the brush tool, make sure it's on 100 opacity, and then make sure the brush color is set to white here. And then you just mask out that apple again. So that's a really nice, easy way to change colors of individual items or to color grade only particular areas in your picture. Okay, I'm just going to delete the mask here because I want to show you something else with this tool. You can also, of course, use it to change the overall colors of the image. Then you just stay on master here, which means all the colors, and then you can change the whole tint of the image. But of course, this is very strong, so I wouldn't normally use it for that, but you could do that if you wanted to. Right, and then the last tool, let me delete this. The last tool I want to show you is another super easy one. It's simply Photo Filter. Choose that. And now you can already see there's another drop-down menu with a lot of presets. I really like those warming filters. They are quite nice, I find, for a lot of different purposes. I normally leave it on preserve luminosity, but you can play around with that. And you can change the density. So if you really want a strong effect, put it quite high. I normally leave it quite low, something like 20%, 15%. If that's still too much for you, you can also change the opacity down here. So you're just changing the opacity of this layer. You could drop that down a bit to make it less pronounced. Now, these filters are also handy if you find, for example, that your image is overall too, let's say, too yellow. Again, go back to your color wheel. What's opposite of yellow is blue. So you could then simply add a blue photo filter. Let's find it here. And you can see that immediately the photo looks much cooler and has an overall blue tint. I find this really handy if sometimes you feel like you have a bit of a color cast. Let's say your photo is too magenta or whatever, and then you can simply choose the opposing color and put a filter on and really balance that out. And that's it. Leave me a comment which tool you find the most helpful. Bye!